Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Power of Man podcast. My name's Rory Paquette. You guys all know that already. I just like to remind myself of, who's sitting in this chair because I'm so very grateful that I'm the one who gets to do this. Folks, ever since we made the move to 5 days a week, you folks have turned out like crazy. And I cannot thank you enough for everything you've done, the shares, the likes, the subscribes. I mean, all of it. It's been just beautiful. The DMs are off the charts. Thank you so much, folks. If you're not out there doing what you're doing, I don't get to sit here and do what I'm doing. So again, I'm grateful. We did this week move to 7 days. So I'm dipping into that one more time, folks. So we need a little bit more from you. We're adding 2 solo episodes so that I can get back to sharing my thoughts with you and not just do interviews because I know you miss me talking. All right, come on, let's be honest. Anyway, so we're going to be doing that, and again, I appreciate everything you guys are doing. It's exciting times for us moving forward. If you're a friend of the program, and I know you are, then you know what time it is. Time to pay some bills. So let me get a sip of my preferred beverage. My goodness gracious, fantastic stuff. And you know what we're drinking? That's right. It's Freedom Hill Coffee at Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram. Check them out. Look them up. Deep, dark, rich, bold, and beautiful, just like my wife. They're absolutely fantastic. They do all the right things for all the right reasons, and they support veterans, which is why we support them. You guys all know how important veterans are to us here at the Power of Man. And for every one of you, thank you for your service, as always. Gentlemen, and a few ladies in the audience, go check them out at Freedom Hill Coffee on Instagram. Freedom Hill Coffee, great stuff. They don't just have coffee either. They have like really cool cups and everything else. So I don't have one, but go check them out. It's really, really cool. You'll love it. Let me get one more sip of this so I can keep up with this youngster on the other side of the table from me. You guys are not going to believe this guy when I tell you what he's here to talk about. Um, like most of you, I've heard stories about things that have happened in the past in this particular area and on this subject. I've never actually talked to somebody who was sitting there and had it right in front of him firsthand and had to deal with it and to suffer the consequences from it. This brave man has come forward to say, "Hey, this is what happened. This is what's going on," and he's got a really, really interesting story to tell. Please welcome to the show, Father, Fire Chief, Patriot, Public Servant, fighting to defend democracy, the Constitution, and our rights. Please welcome Erik Holt. Erik, how you doing, brother?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on. And man, I'm gonna have to go get some Freedom Hill coffee after watching you take that sip. That's
Right
awesome.
on, man. I love hearing
Uh,
that.
yeah, I'll order some after the show for sure.
Go for it.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I have quite a wild story, but you summed me up real well. I'm a dad of 2 teen daughters. One just graduated high school 2 weeks ago. Super proud of her. Following in the first responder footsteps. Former fire chief. Now I'm an emergency manager at the county level. Um, Post story. That's kind of my recovery and my full circle moment. But we'll talk plenty about that. I appreciate you having me on, and thanks for the introduction.
Thank you, man. She's following your footsteps into first responder, fire or police, or what you doing?
EMS. She
Oh,
this senior year of school, she got to ride on ambulances for half her days, and on Monday she takes her national registry EMT test. So she's addicted to the fast-paced, exciting world. So I'm very proud of her.
wow. Good job, Dad. Way to go. I love that. That's fantastic. And
Thank you.
congratulations. All right. Well, let's get to it. Because I mean, you've got all these titles, you've done all these things, and you've got a story. So, Erik, go ahead and start where you feel like you need to start to tell everybody what you're here to talk about, brother.
Awesome. Well, at the 30,000 foot view, I am wrapped up in a 10th Circuit Court of Appeals case, protected speech under the First Amendment. So I was a fire chief in Colorado, and the board of director elections happened. I was not a part of that election. I didn't vote in that election. I had a job to do during that election, and that was to be a fire chief and lead firefighters. Members of the community reported some things, and we can go into that as we talk about the story. But uh, I uncovered election fraud on high definition video, and I turned that over to uh, law enforcement. And ever since that moment, my life has probably forever changed, of course. And although I am a veteran and I've taken an oath, I never thought or understood how easily any of us could be, embroiled in something like this. Um, but here we are, and I've been chosen, and I'm ready to continue this fight. Maybe I wasn't prepared for it, but none of us really are for those battles in life that actually have a higher meaning than our day to day, and that's just the reality that I was faced with. But yeah, I mean, we can jump into it in more detail if you're ready for that.
Sure. Yeah, I'm curious right off the bat. You said you were a fire chief, you had a job to do. Um, Maybe we start there. Was it in your capacity as fire chief that you were sort of called upon to look into some of these allegations?
No, not really. And so this is a huge distinction in this court of appeals process. Which, as we were getting started, I got the email that my appellate brief has been filed. So we're actually off and running on that. But it really
Congrats.
centers around uh, what my job duties were and how they're defined in court, and whether that becomes protected speech or not.
Interesting. Okay, so let's go back to kind of the beginning. What was it that happened? What was it that you saw?
Um, So to get into the day of the election, I was working remote. The board, Colorado statutes defines the governance of an election as a board of directors position, or responsibility. Sorry. So the board at the time, the incumbent board had decided, because of the contentiousness of this local election, to hire a designated election official that worked for the law firm that represented the district, and a deputy election official. So they administered it. Uh, Again, this was a very contentious election. Like the opposing side was, trying to pull me in, and I had to fight real hard to stay free of that. My job is to be the fire chief. I'm not a candidate. I'm not loyal to a single person in this. I'm loyal to the community, my job, and my firefighters. And so, because of that, I met with the DEO the morning of the election, actually the night before, and then the morning of, unlocked the fire station, and I worked remote. What brought me to the fire station was my job. There was a gentleman who had been transported from his home in route, went into cardiac arrest. The medevac landing site is at the fire station where the election was being held. So I report there and set up a landing zone. We end up doing CPR and work this guy for some time. I mean, anybody that's a first responder kind of knows the flow of things. And the gentleman didn't make it, unfortunately. So that's the reason that I was there. When everything was said and done, it is my job to go and notify the family. Like, when we left his home, he was alive, and now that has changed. And that's one of the unfortunate parts of being a local fire chief. I went with um, ambulance service lieutenant and the paramedic that was responsible for it. We had that unfortunate, um, duty. But when that was done, I came back to the station to retrieve my command vehicle. And while I was there, I had somebody that I knew walk up to me and said, "Hey, like, I want to show you this picture. There's a poll watcher walking, and it's a small community, so everybody knows each other. I'm just not going to use these people's names, but
Sure, sure.
um, said the poll watcher just walked out on her phone and is in the electioneering zone. Now, if you've ever been to a poll location, there's 100-foot perimeter or whatever it is, on her phone, and what I overheard her, this is third party, the person telling me, said, did you pay them, and what are they driving over there? And that sounded really weird to me. Why is a poll watcher outside on the phone with somebody saying, did you pay them, and what vehicle description? I said, well, that doesn't sound right at all. Let me take you inside to the designated election official, and you can talk to that person. So I did that, and then I left. I had to come, I think, two other times to the station that day, to, like, from calls, so to get medical supplies or do whatever. But that's my only interaction that day during the election. After the election was over, there was some weirdness going on. The poll watchers were actually posting results before the election official did, which is illegal, but they were there at the station and had inside knowledge. So not the right thing to do, but not the gravest of circumstances, I guess, given the scenario. But I meet the DEO there to lock up the station, and she was kind of like, "Man, what? You all right? You know?" And she's got like an hour's drive home. Like, you good to get home? You know? She's like, it was just chaotic the whole day. I can't believe this. Um, and so that this is a paralegal that works in law and is is involved with special district administration within the state of Colorado pretty heavily. So uh, the next day, I was in town and somebody else had mentioned something like, "Hey, I think I was being filmed when I went and voted yesterday." And I was like, "By who?" You know, and they're like, "The poll watchers. They were filming us." And I was like, "What?" You know, so I called the attorney that represents the district and said, "Hey, like I need to let you know these things." And she said, "Well, I talked to the designated election official who's the paralegal for that attorney." And she said, there's something weird here. Like she had a lot of complaints and, I'm looking into it, but do your job and kind of stay out of it. And I'm like, okay, cool. Again, back to being the fire chief, I've got calls to run, firefighters to train, all this stuff. So over the next few days, man, my incumbent board president at the time and the attorney had talked, and they thought there was a pretty heavy problem. So I discussed this in my Facebook and TikTok pages, in my videos. Like, I had this like burning gut feeling of like this moral dilemma. Like, yeah, it's my best interest to ignore this and not get involved in it because this
Right.
is an election thing. But I'm also like a patriot who believes in the Constitution and the founding of this country, what we're based in, right? Um, and it was just killing me. And so I had a conversation, probably the election was May 2nd, 2023. So probably that no more than a week goes by, less than a week, a couple days, and I just am dealing with this, and I'm talking to the attorney, and she said, like, I think there's something here. We're gonna figure it out. And my board president at the time, the incumbent one, files an injunction with the court saying, the suspected election fraud took place, and we're asking the court to look into it, basically. And the attorney had also contacted the DA's office, and I knew of this. And so, in my small world, when criminal investigations are launched, like there's probably something going on. And from what I had heard. And so I make the decision. I'm laying in bed one night and I just am grappling with this like moral dilemma: put myself on the chopping block or look into it. But if I look into it, I know that I'm not capable of ignoring if I find something. And so I make the decision. After work the next day, I go to Walmart, buy a thumb drive, and I go to a third party vendor of ours that ran the security footage or the security system, and they maintained the servers. They did all of our IT work. It was a contract that the board had with them. And I said, hey, like I need you guys to put the footage of May 2nd, 2023 from these cameras from, I think it was like 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. was the hours. And I said, let me know when it's done and how much it is. And so the next day they called me. I went and paid for it, went home, and I'm a single dad. I have two teen daughters at the time. They're still teen daughters. But I talk about it now. It's like everything that I needed to do in life took precedence because I think I was nervous about what I'd find, and I also didn't know what I was looking for. So I kind of joke that I cooked dinner and braided hair and did all the things that dads do, and like looked for every excuse that I could not to get onto this. But once they went to bed, what I did was I ended up printing out the Colorado statutes for election rules, and I read through them. And I go, all right, well, that should give me a basis of what I'm looking for here, if there is something. And There's something like 40 hours of footage. So it's not like in one sitting that I do this, but um without being able to show you guys, what I can kind of walk you through is the main camera inside the fire station overlooked the pole watching station. So it would have been right behind where they're sitting. And they're facing the forward of the room, the fire hall. And then there's like five pole locations with the partitions up.
Okay.
So when a voter would go in, they were blocked by the partition and everything that they did. You couldn't see that, but you could see what the poll watchers were doing. And the first thing that I picked up on was that they were showing each other things like in their hands, and they would do an action like with their hands. So they would look at somebody, they'd get a nod, they'd point to them something, and then they would do this action. And I couldn't see on the camera specifically. And then the next thing I noticed was the lady had her laptop open, and it just because of the position of the camera, you're looking down on it, and you could see that she's recording the room. And I went, "Oh, I know that's right here in the election law. That's not allowed."
Right.
And then it was, "Oh, well, they're on their cell phones, they're texting, they're okay, that's not allowed by poll watchers." So I started to put these pieces together. And the action that I'm speaking that they were doing is eventually like slowed it down, and I caught one frame of it. And if you go to my Justice for Holt pages on Facebook or TikTok, there's a video where I show these specific screenshots. But these folks were holding track counters, so those ones with a little button click and
Yeah.
it'll count. And so there's like 4 out of 6 of them that have these track counters, and they're confirming the counts with each other. So once I picked up on that, I go, "Oh, okay. They're counting votes, but how are they knowing whose side they're voting for?" There's like
Right.
9 candidates or something, right? So then I start to watch a little more specifically. Well, the camera 2 was outside just above the front door, which would have been the electioneering box facing the front parking lot. And so what I started to watch for was they would pick up their phone, they were texting, or they were answering a phone call, and they would walk out. And then you could hear audio out there, but basically they're meeting people in the parking lot that somebody offsite is sending them, right? I don't know that piece to it. But they're confirming, okay, what are they driving? Okay, cool. And then they would meet people, and you could hear them tell them names. Then that person would go inside, register to vote, and then when they would leave the ballot box, they'd, or give them nods, and then they would click. And so I could start to put all these together. And then the piece that brought it all together was they got very bold in doing this all day. And so about 3:30 in the afternoon, one of the candidates and 3 of the poll watchers, um, I think 2 were coming from the ballot counting room and 2 were headed up, and they met a candidate. And they just happened to pick directly under the camera. So the audio is really clear. But one lady is talking, and she says her husband's name, but she walks up and she goes, "He said if we're under 800 votes, we've got this hands down." I go, "Oh," I cue in. And one of the poll watchers is literally bragging to the candidate, "Oh, yeah, we're in the ballot room. We're keeping count when they call 3 of our people's names because 3 is a quorum." And so they had tallied it around that whole day where they knew the numbers for not only were they confirming them in the ballot room or the polling location, then they were confirming it up in the ballot count room, and they were coming down, writing it all down, comparing it with each other, and somebody offsite was coordinating it. And when I put all those pieces together, I said, "This is holy cow. We've got election fraud, plain and simple. Like they
What in the world?
engineered this." Yeah, and so I always talk about being naive because I go, "Why in the heck would somebody cheat a fire department election?" Like, I know it was contentious and I know there was a lot of drama, but these are people that don't do firefighting. Are they willing to commit crimes to get control of the fire department? I was very naive on that, but basically, when I put all those pieces together, I called the district attorney's office, and just a kind of a funny note, I call and I'm like, hey, can I talk to the district attorney? And they're like, no, who the hell are you?
Right.
What do you want? So eventually I get passed around enough where I talk to an investigator. He's a law enforcement officer, right? So he says, yeah, I heard I took a report from so and so, and we have open an investigation. What do you have? And I said, well, I've got the video evidence for you. I went and got it, and I need to meet with you and show it to you. Uh, Friendly guy, he came, met me the next morning very early, like before work, and I sit down with him, and uh, this is when I knew like it was bigger than I thought it was because I'm a first responder too. Like we can have that camaraderie, we can joke, but cops are cops, and so when they get rigid, they're working all of a sudden.
Hmm.
So we're kind of shooting the mess and talking while I'm showing him stuff just to get comfortable, and then all of a sudden his posture changed, and he wasn't talking much. And he was being very specific. Let me see this again. Okay, who is this person? How far is this from? And we meet for probably an hour, and he goes, I need to take the rest of, can I have your thumb drive? And I go, that's for you. And he explains like, hey, I'm not the election investigation guy. That guy's on vacation, but I'm taking this report for him, and he'll be back next week, and yada yada. I'm like, all right, cool. So I feel like, okay, I did my part. Back to being fire chief, right?
Right.
Um, so that was like May 19th, 2023 is when I met with him early in the morning. Well, the transition from these now 5 declared winners is supposed to happen May 24th. And the incumbent president files the court injunction, and the group that is under criminal investigation basically goes, like, you have no right to file this court thing. It's all going on in social media. And how special districts is like public meetings, there's transparency laws. So you have to post agendas. So the transition is supposed to happen May 24th. And the incumbent board that's now filed the court injunction is posted an agenda that says, due to a criminal investigation of election fraud, we're postponing the meeting till June 10th. And that opened the gates, man, because now everybody knows the
Oh,
secret's
wow.
out.
Yeah.
So my life becomes pretty rough, pretty fast. And these folks basically just say, we're not gonna do that. We're seizing power, is what they say. So I'm at the station on May 24th at the end of the day, and the board president and the vice president come up. Their names are Paul Del Toro and Judy Dunn. And they come up and they say, if you don't let us access the station tonight to hold our meeting, like, that's an act of insubordination, and we're coming for you. And I'm like, excuse me? Intimidation doesn't work too well with me. And they just sort of leave it at that. And I call the attorney, and I actually write a memorandum, which is part of my case. And I've shown that is like, there's a little foreshadowing that happens in it. I say, like, without somebody of legal precedence, and I'm a fire chief, I'm not a lawyer. Without somebody telling me who the board is, right now I have to treat everybody like they're not, to be fair and equitable. But I have a concern that this will result in operational problems for the fire department, and I'm asking you, the attorney, for guidance on that. And so she calls me and she says, Erik, like, you're in a tough spot, and so am I. I reported this, and then in the legal framework of how transition happens in Colorado statute is at the next regular meeting or 30 days after the certification of election. So the incumbent board has delayed until the 30th day, and the board that has been declared winning but under criminal investigation is saying, no, we're doing it, and we're not abiding by this delayed meeting. So ultimately, she just says, look, I have to resign because I have a conflict of interest. My firm did the administration of the election, but I also represent protecting the liability of the entity, which is the fire district, and I can't do both. And so she says the second that they take over, I have to resign, and there's no way to stop it. This is something that the board of directors, the two sides, have to decide. And I go, okay, cool. So basically, what happens is there's a lot of posturing, a lot of peacocking,
I'll
and
bet.
the incumbent board just what I feel is a very gracious move. They just said, you know what, there's a criminal investigation and something's been filed for the court. That will, in the end, be what resolves this. So we're just going to step out of the way. And I was fine with that. Like, let me focus on running a fire department.
Right.
Um, because a fire department should not be surround, like the focus shouldn't be the board of directors in any department. Let's be clear here. It's the community and then the
Right.
responders. So um yeah, I was very distracted by that and trying to do my thing. And then uh within a day, um the first order of business by this new board under criminal investigation, I get an email with a list of orders basically. And number one on that list, location and passwords for the security system. Now, Rory, I don't know if you ever served on a board or been elected in the fire department, but I can't imagine your first order of business would be what's the security camera access, right? So there was a pretty clear sign what their focus was.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So let us destroy the evidence is what they want to do first.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
and of course the predicament I'm in, right? So I called the
Right.
investigator and I'm like, "Hey, man, like, what do I do here?" He's like, "Look, man, you can't tell anybody that this is going on or that you're a witness or anything. So like, I just need you to be quiet." And I'm like, okay, like I'll play dumb. And so I start to resist these things. Day two, I get a phone call, and if you go to my Justice for Hope pages, I posted the recorded phone call, uh, and it's Paul Del Toro, the now board president, calls and says, "Hey, I froze the bank accounts." And I'm like, "You did what?" "Yeah, I froze the bank accounts of the fire district." "Yeah." "Why the hell would you do that?" Like that makes no sense. But in this recorded phone call, like I'm stunned by it, but the chaos has been going on. So uh, I go, "Are the bills going to get paid?" He goes, "Yeah, I get to approve each and every transaction." I go, "Okay, well, we just made like the monthly bills. Are we, everything's good?" And he tells me yes. So we head into Memorial Day weekend of 2023. He, in that same phone call, he's like, "Hey, I'm leaving. I'll be out of town." And I'm like, in the back of my head, like, "Oh, great. I don't have the bank account to operate the district. So hopefully nothing major happens." And mind you, like 3 weeks prior, we had a major fire that threatened the whole town. So we're in the height of fire season. Uh, and in the mountains of Colorado, Memorial Day is the official start, like it is many places. Like everybody from the city floods up to the mountains,
Mhm.
and we are that corridor. So get through the weekend, and then May 30th is the first working day back. And Paul Del Toro meets me at the station as requested to sign a renewal for our liability insurance. And he comes, he signs it. I hand him the invoice, and he, "Oh man, that's crazy." I'm like, "Yeah, it has to get paid. It's due June 1st, and we're on May 30th. So, um, can you handle that?" "Yeah, I'll go home and do it. Email it." So I email it. And luckily at this moment I had my training captain there, but he goes, "Where's your," and I'm not going to use her name, but "where's your executive assistant?" And I say, "She's at a medical appointment." "Why?" And he gets super like out of the norm angry about it. And I'm like, I'm her supervisor, and like I've got this. And he's like, "No, that's it. She's gone. Her performance and blah blah blah." And I'm like, "Hard stop, dude. Like, you can't do that. This is like you're EEO violating right now. And he just like threatens her job and storms out when I get on and like you're going to stop now. Like, we're not talking about this. And so I have my captain. I say, hey, man, like, go in your office, write a statement, email it to me. Um, Not okay. And so the individual comes back from her appointment and says, like, I sit her down and go, hey, like, I got to let you know that this happened. The actions that I took, here's a statement. Please know that I stopped it immediately. And she resigns on the spot because of the harassment that's been going on. What I didn't know then that I do know now through depositions and discovery is that Mr. Del Toro was told by the bank that they found out he wasn't a bank authorized signatory and he froze the account, i.e., bank fraud. And so they said he had to bring in the one person left that was a signatory to verify who's who. And because she wasn't there, that's why he got so angry. But because of his reaction and his comments, she's now resigned. And now there's nobody that's a signatory on the bank.
Oh my gosh. Okay. This just gets better. All right.
Yeah. Yeah. So now he doesn't tell anybody this, at least not me, the chief. Um, but the bank has stepped in and said this is fraud. And now there's nobody that can unwind this thing. So this is May 30th. He does not inform me, but harassment is at like max, right? Like, I've got firefighters that are like, hey, should we go to the grocery store and packs? Like, I didn't know it at the time, but one of the board members got upset with one of our like fire corps support members, like making some comments online against them. And he came in, and I believe in open carry and I believe in the Second Amendment. But when you come in and threaten a woman at a coffee shop that, like, I know where you live and you're going to stop. So that got reported to the local law enforcement. But this is the climate that we're trying to operate a department in. And the board is harassing firefighters like nonstop. So I'm getting all these complaints. And one has now been filed, a federal EEOC complaint by the executive assistant. So I asked to speak to the new attorney that they've hired for personnel matters. And the first time in my career ever, I get told no to speak with legal counsel to protect the district. Right? That's a normal function of a fire chief. Like, we don't have some huge HR department. So who handles that is you verify everything that you do through the attorney. And so I make the request and he tells me no. And then I reach out and call the law firm like, hey, I'm the chief I'm trying to talk to this person. And he emails me back. He says, like, I've been directed that I can't speak to you by the board. And I'm like, what are you talking about, dude? Like, what? And I find out he's never been a special district fire department attorney before. He's just some, random attorney that they picked. Seemed to have some sort of connection to him. But
Right.
I'm like, how do I protect this department and the liabilities that are happening? Um, so that goes on for a few days. June 5th happens. I'm getting towards the end of what we'll talk about.
You're
So
doing great. Go ahead. Yeah.
June 5th, I get an email from a guy named Alan Schultz. He's the vice secretary. So he pro se responds to the court thing filed by the old board. And I immediately respond with, I'm not a party to this civil action in any way. You shouldn't include me in this. Thinking like, maybe he's just not a smart person and put me in there. And he responds very rapidly with, oh, you need to read it. I've implicated you and asked that you be charged with felonies. And I was like sitting at my desk and I like this same reaction of what?
Yeah.
So I open the document and I get to reading it. And his pro se thing is his personal interpretation of law. Uh, and mind you, has no law background. It's one of these types. Um, is that the election was filmed, therefore it's illegal. actually not accurate. If anybody's surprised by that, that a lawyer in a law firm ran the. I met with them. We discussed it all. So, but the lesson there is I'm being threatened like directly by the board of directors. And so I have a clause in my contract that's an indemnification clause. And so I reach out to the board president, Paul Del Toro, and I forward him the email and I say, look, like you're the president of the board, you need to get control of the board, but also I need to invoke my indemnification clause because in the course of my duties, I'm now being accused by somebody who is technically one of my five bosses, uh, and is threatened that I need to be charged with felony. So I need some legal representation in that matter. Um, and this is late June 5th. Well, June 6th, things blow up. So the next thing that happens is they were going to have a special meeting. Um, and on that, number one item was chief's duties and responsibilities. And I also referred to my contract that same day, June 5th, and says, hey, like my contract states that we both have to enter into this in writing to renegotiate any part of it. Given what's going on, that is not the conversation we need to have right now. And so I'm like denying that. I need to focus on this department. And so they meet to have this meeting anyways. But what happens is I get a phone call from the insurance company. It's now June 6th. And she says to me, hey, your bill hasn't been paid. It was due on the 1st. It's $23,000. And you're at risk of being canceled. And I go, you really need to call Paul Del Toro, the board president. So she does that. I get a phone call from five frantic board members on the speakerphone. What do we do? What's going on? I said, Paul, you signed the paperwork on the 30th and told me you were going to pay it. Back to the bank, he didn't tell anybody there's a hard freeze on the account. So there's no way to pay this. Now I've compiled everything from again depositions and discovery, so I have timestamps on things. Paul's story is that he called the bank and then was notified at that moment that the bank had stopped their agreement in place and froze the accounts. And then calls his bank and wires $23,000 from his personal account at like 3:12 p.m. So his story is that he called one bank, had this whole conversation, then got on his bank, and within 11 minutes was able to email confirmation of a wire. If that's the truth, man, I need his bank because that I've never gotten anybody that fast in my life on the phone, let alone
Right.
two banks. So what's really sad is he sends this payment, let's say it was like 3:12 p.m. or something, and sends a confirmation number to them that payment is wired. Meanwhile, I'm waiting, going, what's going on? At 4:30, he emails me that I need to shut the district down because we've lost insurance. So an hour, 20 minutes later, after making payment, he, for some reason, shuts the district down. So my job is to call the other chiefs in the area, our mutual aid partners, and notify the community that we can't respond to emergency calls for service. So I posted on our social media, posted on our website, and we shut down. You ever heard of the news, Roy?
I haven't seen it in about 40 years, but I've
Yeah.
seen all this opinionated stuff. Yeah,
Yeah. So all the local news get latches onto this story real fast.
I imagine.
Um, and again, it's very peculiar that he did that after making the payment, but uh, onward with the story. 3.5 hours later, I get an email saying you can respond to calls again. Insurance is good. Good night. And I'm like, the email that I sent, and I've shown that is how incredibly irresponsible this was. I need to speak to the attorney immediately. And that goes unanswered. But Paul Del Toro posts a statement to the community admitting fault. But his story is that payment was processed, and then because of the arrangement with the bank, it fell through. It didn't get paid. But it was a little bit of like, okay, cool. Like they're kind of on the hot seat now. Now everybody knows. Maybe now we can get back to business and focus. So at this point in the story, I make it through the rest of that week, and I am scheduled for leave because my daughters just get out for summer vacation. Again, I'm single dad, two teen
Yeah.
daughters. I'm gonna spend some time with them. And so the arrangement I make is all my captains and all of my crew has been planning for months for me to be able to take this time off. Like they got me. I have not taken a day off in like 18 months. Um, and they come up with the staffing model, and they are kicking butt, man. Like we built something so amazing in the year that I was there. We went from like 4 responders to 62. We had the most EMTs, most wildland firefighters, most our response times were less than half of when I took over. So we're getting more qualified people to scene to people that need it faster. All good metrics. So on this leave, the board starts to have these secret meetings, secret executive sessions. So like I want to say the 12th or 15th of June. Now, mind you, all of this is 2 weeks. This is a 2 week span of time. All this stuff happens,
Yeah. I
right?
mean, it's going fast, actually. Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, and I've glazed over tons of for the essence of time here, but basically in a week they have 3 executive sessions and they lie on the public agenda basically. So if you're going to discuss personnel matters in the state of Colorado in executive session, you have to post a notice with the statute cited and the name of the individual if they're an executive that you're going to be discussing, and then you have to notify that person because they have a right to be there. They don't do that. They basically, I think they put state employment or state and federal laws or something. And I think the assumption was they were trying to figure out how to handle the EEOC complaint. But 3 of those happen in the week that I'm off. And then I get on June 21st, I get an email. State law is 24 hours before a meeting is called. You have to have public notice and post it. And so, as close to that as possible, I get an email from Paul Del Toro while I'm still on my vacation time. It says, "We need you at the station tomorrow at 4 p.m." I open the agenda and it says executive session. And then, come back to meeting, go into another executive session. Well, the second executive session finally gets it right. And they put my name in there and he's notifying me of that. And so the next item on the agenda was evaluate the employment of Erik Holt as fire chief. And then the following one was hire an interim chief. So the agenda is pretty clear on what's going to happen.
Kind of let the cat out of the bag on that one, right? I mean,
Yeah,
what in
like
the
everybody does.
world?
And so I show up, tons of my fire, like 40 of our people are there, members of the department. Like it's out. But I haven't seen these people physically in like a week. And they are out for blood. They are trying to embarrass me. And they show up with a commercial popcorn machine from like a movie theater and lemonade in these big, like, dispensers. And they're hanging out and they're throwing like a block party to fire me. And I'm just like, my people are pissed, right? Like the firefighters are like, let's let's run this show and I stay professional. I have kind of a powwow with all not going to department. But what I need from you guys is to remain professional and respond to calls. This community needs you. You've put in so much. You've got the culture of this department in your veins, and you got, a servant's heart. You guys need to focus on that and maintain. I'm just the figurehead, but absent of me, somebody else will lead. And everybody like, all right, rah, rah. But we go into that meeting and they're just super disrespectful. The story that they tell, they had done this quote unquote investigation. Again, in the time frame, they've been board of directors for 2 weeks, and in that 2 weeks, they're under election fraud, criminal investigation. They've committed bank fraud, um, but somehow they've conducted this thorough investigation and come up with that was my job as the fire chief. The bills got paid. And since they didn't get paid, I placed the department in. I resist the story that the bylaws say that I can't pay bills. The policy of the district is that I can spend up to $5,000 in an operational capacity that's been approved in the budget. This is a $23,000 bill. And oh, by the way, you illegally froze bank accounts. So even if somehow I had access to the system, QuickBooks, to write a check that I couldn't sign, that was over the amount that I'm allowed to spend, even if I could have accomplished all that, you froze the bank accounts. So I couldn't, there's no way that I could have done this. But they fire me for it. And so immediately I stand up, I recommend our senior captain, and I say, hey guys, like, this is the most senior guy, he's the most qualified guy, and he has the trust of the department. I think you should put him as interim chief. And they kind of slip and they say, well, we already met with somebody and we already discussed that. And I was like, before this meeting? Like, oh, last week. I'm like,
Oh my
oh, okay.
gosh.
Yeah. And the worst thing happens, it's another captain in the department, and everybody has that Benedict Arnold feeling all of a sudden, and they're pissed.
Yeah.
Emotions flare. This ends up in a screaming match. Like, department members storm out. It is just a terrible, unprofessional thing. Um, and I'll kind of end with this: is I'm now in my video series where I'm documenting all this stuff and showing everything. I've gotten to this, and I made this video yesterday. Is I was surrounded by people that loved and cared for me and respected me, and were there to protect me. And then my job was to get them away from that station in that moment so that bad things didn't happen. And so we went down the street at I think it was a bar, but it's, you order food. It's got like a outdoor area. We were seated there, and I have a picture of it, and it's a meaningful picture for me. But I'm surrounded by people that love, respect me. I want to care for me and protect me. And I've never felt more alone all of a sudden. And I just remember this like creeping up feeling. And I realized like I have to go home and tell my two teen daughters that I don't have a job. And these two girls rely on me for everything. And so like this wells up inside of me. And so I hang out for like a half hour, and it's starting to get dark. And I go home and I open the door. This isn't a surprise to my girls. I gave them the highlights of what could happen. They're both teenagers
Yeah.
and they can handle that. And this is what I say, like, my daughters are absolute rock stars, and I love them, and I'll do anything for them like any father would. But usually I think fathers are used to a one-way relationship of like we provide for them.
Yeah.
And this like such a valuable lesson for me. Is like I said, girls, I got fired and I don't have a job anymore. But the good news is, for the first time in your lives, dad is off all summer with you, and we're gonna have fun and we're gonna do things. And they smiled, and I could tell that they were scared, but I said everything's gonna be all right, and they believed me, and they hugged me, and they gave me that comfort as like a dad that they trusted that. And I get emotional about that still to this day because it meant like, okay, like we're all in this together. But I get them to bed and I freak the F out in bed. Like I lay down, and the realization of I know I made a conscious decision to stand up for something, and I feel morally justified that I did that. I think it's the right thing to do, but I have now lost everything. And there's two girls sleeping downstairs
Yeah.
that I'm responsible for. And the weight of that hit me. And I've been fighting that for 2 years, and we are in a good place. We've recovered, but there is this case happening. And recently, like a month ago, the district court judge, who is a foreign-born Biden appointee at the federal judge level, who is constantly in the news for some crazy rulings. But Judge Wing wrote an opinion and granted summary judgment dismissing my case, saying that I, an Army veteran and first responder, and all these things have no First Amendment protections because she ruled that my presence at that election was that it's within my duties to do all that. And I firmly disagree with that. My job is to run calls, to lead, to manage a department, not to get involved in election fraud. But she did that. And at that point, I was just like, all right, I'm in a stable place in life. I've spent $150,000 to fight this
Oh
battle.
my God.
I sold my home to do that, halfway across the country for my next job, which took over a year to find. But the fight's over. I lost. And I accepted that. I just took it on the chin. And guys out there, I'm going to tell you this: build an army of people that are so damn loyal to you, they won't let you give up, because that's what I have. I called my closest friends. I called, guys I served with in the army, went to war with, that bond is forever. I called firefighters and I called other friends, and every one of them said, "You're not giving up, dude." I said, I don't have a choice. I lost. They're like, no, you didn't. Reach down, grab yourself, pick yourself up, and fight this.
Yeah.
It's bigger than you. And every single one of the people in my army and in my team said that. And it's easy as a person to say, you know what, I'm good. I'm over it. Like, it's 2 years ago and I've recovered, but it's bigger. And I had to hear that message, and thank you to the army behind me and my supporters. So I filed an appeal with the 10th Circuit, and that's where we're at now with it.
Wow. So what you're are you trying to get the job back, or are you trying to get like compensation for getting damages? I mean, what is the actual suit that's out there?
So my initial thing, so when I met with my attorney, I said, I want my job back, and I
Right.
want it back fast. Like, I don't deserve this. These people did wrong. And he said, oh, okay, yeah, yeah, you can do that. It'll be 3 months. I'm like, okay, cool. Uh, that could have been farther from the truth.
Right. 2 years
Uh,
later. Yeah.
yeah. So the time that federal court takes, like, I didn't even get a response to the lawsuit within that 3 months, right? Then, they tried to have it thrown out. That failed. That yada yada, back and forth until the summary judgment took 2 years. So basically, like, that boat is so far sailed. Of the people that did this, one is still on that board. One quit within 3 months, I think. The other within six, and two others didn't run for reelection, and one is still there. So the only thing left is case law. Um, and yes, there would be punitive side to that. That I would invest into my daughter's future. Like,
Sure.
I have recovered. I have to continue to say that. Like, I have been blessed beyond what I deserve in the last 2 years. I mean, it took a year of over 100 jobs that I interviewed for nationwide. Um, and I'm extremely qualified at the fire chief level. Like, I have school degrees. I have all the certificates that you can have and certifications. Um, I can compete with anybody out there. And I started, with bigger departments and worked my way down to, like, literally tiny little podunk places that every interview, in your last job, what happened? Like, I could never get over that.
Yeah.
But when I talk about a blessing, man, I came home to where I grew up, and I had come out here and interviewed for a fire chief's job, and it looked like it was going to work. But I had another one scheduled in the county I grew up in, and I almost didn't come. But I interviewed for a job below the director, and an hour later, after the interview, they offered me the director's job. And so uh, it's home. It's my family is all around me, and it's more money than I've ever made. So Um, what are the odds of that aligning? I don't know, but that's a blessing, right?
Yeah, absolutely, man. I mean, you deserve it after everything you got put through. Wow, I mean, that's, and a judge, of course, backed the whole thing up and said that all this that happened to you was totally fine. It was perfectly okay to just destroy evidence and everything else.
Yeah, and that's not
I,
the only. Uh, so if I could go through all the failures in this for a minute, the DA investigated for a month, did one interview, and in their thing, I have all the paperwork from it, from an open records request, but we find that there's heavy evidence or strong evidence of election fraud, but we will not prosecute. Yeah. So that guy, his name was Andy Vaughn from El Paso County, Colorado, who doesn't have a job now because he got arrested. So the investigator that I talked to lost his job within months of this investigation for harassing a rape victim and sending, junk pictures and this married man and all this stuff. And so he loses his job. Then this DA, and every time I go back to the DA, I say, "Can you guys please look into this? Like, an investigation wasn't done. I'm looking at all the paperwork. We will not reopen it. The Secretary of State of Colorado will not look at the case." I don't know if anybody's heard of the election stuff in Colorado. It's a dark subject to have looked at.
yeah.
And then another failure of the district court judge, Judge Wang. You know, everybody can go on and read my entire case. It's if you have a Pacer account, uh, PACER,
Hmm.
you can look at court cases in the federal system, and you type in Erik Holt and look it up and read her ruling. I mean, it makes no sense. It doesn't stand up to case law, in my opinion. And other, I'm not an attorney, but I've spoken to several, and every one of them disagrees. That's not how you apply the case law here. That's insane. But in Lane versus Franks, there's two very important things, and it said, one, anything of great public concern is protected speech, even learned through your employment. And two, um, if it you the employers cannot attach such a broad job description that it would encompass stripping somebody of their rights. And so for a judge to say a fire chief, part of his job duties is election administration, that goes against state law, how can that stand, is where I'm at. And that's my appeal.
Wow. I mean, I know Colorado's been a blue state for a while, but I mean, is that pretty much what's going on here? That it's just all left-leaning political stuff that's we're not going to do anything or touch anything that has to do with, election fraud?
That is my experience. I mean, in 2023, we were in the administration that was accused of the things in the 2020 elections, right?
Exactly. Right.
And Colorado is at the heart of that battle. And so, yeah, I think it was hard to get anyone to look at it. Daily Wire, actually, one of my followers just sent me an article, and I didn't know this piece until probably a week ago. But in Colorado Springs, and this is a article on the Daily Wire, the mayor election in May of 2023, the exact same month, there was a racial incident against one of the candidates, who is I think he's a Nigerian immigrant, who's nothing against the guy. I've met him. He seemed like a nice guy. But there was a special runoff because the election results were so close. Well, in that, he had a co-conspirator who's now in prison for murder, that staged a racial, it was a cross burning at 3 a.m. in front of one of his election signs, and they had the N-word. Well, this got investigated by the Justice Department and the FBI, and it was a fraud. Well, when that all happened in May of 2023, there was
Wow.
orders given within the city and the DA's office that anything referring to elections would be swept. And I just read that from the Daily Wire. And so at least that's a pretty high end media
Oh yeah.
source. You
Yeah, it
can
is.
go on and read the Justice Department stuff. And so, now I get it, right? Now I get why they would do one interview and decide what they could see on high definition video and a scheme that played out wouldn't be prosecuted because it would bring a lot of attention.
So
And I
that's
am,
just it. They're all like following orders, right? We're just
yeah,
following orders.
absolutely.
Oh my
Absolutely. What do you do, man?
gosh.
But my battle goes on. I'm in the 10th circuit. I cannot allow the ruling by the district judge to be case law. Because if that is case law, then any fire chief, police officer, first responder in the world, they could say, "Oh, you witnessed somebody murder somebody else. Well, that's your job duty. So you can't stand up for it,
Wow.
right?
Yeah.
You what? How broad is that election administration as a job duty of a fire chief? It's so absurd.
That's so
So,
crazy, brother.
yeah.
It's just wow. 2 years later, and you're still fighting for it. So I mean, you know what? Power to you, because you're still fighting this fight. Now you've got the appeal, and you just found that out today. On the show, basically. So you found
Right.
out today that you have the appeal. But what's the next step then? Is it another year and a half before you get into court with the appeal?
From what I've seen and looked, now, mind you, I've never had any experience in the Circuit Court of Appeals, so this is a Google search. But it says 9 months on average for the 10th Circuit to hear a thing, hear a case. So um, the beautiful thing is I am respecting the court process, and as of this show beginning, it is now a public document that I can share. So on my Justice for Hope Facebook page, I'll post that appellate brief tonight. And I would love for anybody that listens to go on and read it because it's not just my fight, it's all of our fight. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. All right, so give everybody the Facebook again. It's Justice for
Holt, Holt,
Justice, and it's FOR or the number four.
FOR.
Okay, Justice for Holt, HOLT. And it's at that on Facebook. That's the where to go look for this.
Yeah, Facebook and TikTok. And then I also do have a GoFundMe, Justice for Hope. That just is to help these court filing fees, man. Like to file the appellate brief one with just that form was $605, right? So it just gets expensive to do this.
Sure.
And I still have the responsibility for two girls out here. So
Right. And the GoFundMe, we'll definitely have a link for it in case folks want to, chip in, help out. And yeah, I mean, you're how much have you spent on this so far? Just based on principle?
so when I sold my home, I paid $100,000 right up front. Um,
Oh my God.
on top of the $5,000 retainer. So I did that. I still owe them $45,000 and they're beating down my door for that every day. And so, uh, I everything that I had worked for to this age at 40 years old, I've lost to fight this. But I believe in our system. I believe in karma pays itself out, and I do expect that there's a chance I get that back. And if I don't, I don't. Again, sometimes the fight's worth whatever you put into it, and I did just file another lawsuit, so that was more court fees. But um, as of today, it's been received for serving them their summons, but I'm suing them in their individual capacities. So that'll be another one that's going to be in the state court, or not state, but the district courts within under the state, not federal.
Yeah.
So I am chasing down to rebuild that. I think that is something that uh, if it were just me, whatever, I have a really good life and I'm a very happy person. But I have a daughter that just graduated high school and one going in a freshman year, and there's some colleges that are going to need that money, and I intend to pay for it. So, um, there wouldn't be enough money in the world to um, undo the embarrassment and the stuff that my kids have had to go through. You could give me $1 billion, and I wouldn't change anything. And so it really isn't about money. I really, anything I get out of it in a court win would go to my kids.
Right.
Um, but I can't have my kids pay for that battle either. So, uh,
Right.
it's kind of a dichotomy there, man. But we're trying. We're going to keep it going. I'm pro se. Um, I don't have a degree in law, but I'm going to fight the fight the best that I can.
Good for you, man. I mean, seriously, and at this point, you're not just fighting it for yourself and to try and recoup, some of this damage that's been done to you. You really are fighting the case law itself, and I hope people really get that, because if this is all allowed to stand, then like you said, that fire chiefs, first responders, everybody is going to just be powerless against this kind of thing in the future. And you'd love to sit here and go, well, that won't ever happen again. It happened before, but it's over. There's still people who don't even
Right.
believe it happened.
Yeah.
Because Facebook told them it didn't, and it's like, no matter what you've seen on video, no matter what evidence everybody's seen, well, that probably did happen, but we're not going to do anything about it. Is like now the stance.
Oh
That's
yeah.
just absurdity.
I've learned a lot about humanity, man. And these people have their friends and their family members, and like even in the face of like, look at the objective evidence of this, right? Whether that's the bank fraud or the election stuff. Like, I have had people scream in my face and say, none of that happened. You're lying about it. Right. And I'm showing them like it's right in front of your face, right? And it's just people refuse to believe stuff at times. And that is the reality of whatever allegiance you are. But what is above all of that is the Constitution and our Bill of Rights. And so if one guy like me gets in this situation and they choose to let case law stand for the rest of time, that is documented as case law. And so
Yeah,
you have to go to a higher court and you have to go to a higher court. Luckily, in all the research I did, almost all of the groundbreaking First Amendment protected speech cases lose in district court and they go to the appellate court and win, and then go to the Supreme Court and become unequivocally. So Lane versus Franks, that's the most prominent one in this.
yeah,
Um, that was the path that took, but that's concreted in forever now, unless the
right.
Supreme Court itself reverses it. So hopefully I'm on a similar path as Mr. Lane in that case, and we'll protect our democracy that way.
Yeah, is that where you think you're heading, the Supreme Court?
No, I'm pretty confident I'll win in the 10th Circuit.
Good, good.
Most of the First Amendment protected speeches, for some reason, is funneled through the 10th Circuit.
Hmm.
So unless I've got a very left-leaning panel for some reason, I think I should be in really good shape because the case law supports me.
Good. Good. I'm glad to hear that. You mentioned the hate that you're getting. I imagine your daughters had to put up with some of that too.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, small town, man. Everybody knew. My kid, my middle schooler. Middle school's vicious, and so like literally, like she would come home crying. Like people were teasing her that dad got fired in this very public way. That's heartbreaking as a dad.
Right.
'Cause, I mean, we just want to, you want to talk about some primal instincts. Let your kid cry, and
Right.
then somebody hurt you. Uh, and so that's like, I had one, Judy Dunn reached out to me on Facebook and was like, I just wanted to check and see how you're doing. And I don't live with hate in my heart at all, but I told her to go to hell because of the damage they did to my kids, right?
Right.
Don't ever contact me. You should rot in hell. It was really what, I mean, almost verbatim. I have no sympathy for what happens to these people in the end
Good for you.
because they didn't have sympathy for my own kids.
That's I think just about every one of our listeners that is a father of any kind is hearing those words right now, going, amen. Absolutely amen. You come at me all you want, but you don't go after kids. And that side doesn't care who they go after. They really don't. It's utterly insane to me.
Yep.
Wow. Wow. All right. So we will make sure all that stuff is in the show notes, brother. Listen, you covered a ton, and I'm sure there's parts of this story people haven't you haven't gotten because you gave a pretty good, concise everything that's going on. Justice for Holt on Facebook, check that out because that sounds like it's a much more detailed history. It can answer a lot of questions. Am I right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, each one's like 10 minutes long, and I'm covering, one meeting or one day, and I'm showing the documents, I'm showing the videos, the recording. I'm every bit of evidence is coming forward so that nobody, you don't have to take my word for it.
Right.
You hear and see it and read it. So
Sure. I'll be checking that out. Yeah, soon. Probably within the next 24 hours, I'll be over there checking it out. And when this comes out, of course, then everybody else gets a chance to look at it. But, brother, I mean, wow. And we'll continue to help spread the word outside of the podcast on social as much as we can. Because, I know as well as anybody what shadow banning looks like and, what it looks like when the social media giants put their boot on the back of your neck. They've been doing it to me for 6 years. So,
yeah,
and you are at the heart of the storm, man. I mean, just wow. As we kind of pull this together and wrap just, I mean, this segment of this story, because I got a feeling this is not going away, and I'd love to have you back on when get to the next step in your journey. When that you get done in the appellate court, man, come back. Let's
absolutely. I would love to.
get you back on here. I appreciate you. Um, is there anything? I mean, it's hard to say. Is there anything I didn't ask you? Because I mean, just wow, the story's vast. But is there anything I didn't ask you or we missed? Is there anything that maybe you brought up and you just want to like drive home a little, or is there maybe to leave behind, maybe a lesson or a word of advice or anything like that that you want to leave to, our listeners? And I'm going to give you the floor to kind of wrap us up here for the last minute or two while we move into the next segment of your life, brother.
Well, I appreciate that, and I will be quick because I this has rambled on. I'm sure people are sick of looking at my face, but uh, knowing your platform and who your listeners are, I will say in closing, if you're ever in a position of a moral dilemma, understand it's going to come at a cost, and be prepared for that. But build yourself an army of loyal supporters, because when you show that side and you stand up for something greater than you, people will support you. And don't ever cower to the other side of this. Because if we do that, if I did that, if you did that, anybody else out there listening did that, we would live in something that's not worth fighting for. And I believe in this country. Again, I will stand as a patriot and say it's worth defending, but it's going to come at a cost. Uh, but in that cost, you will be rewarded with blessings, and it gets better. So even though I'm still fighting my battle, I've been blessed beyond what I will ever deserve. My children are thriving, and my children have got to experience something as young, blossoming adults that most will never get to see. And that's, you know, defending what is right. And I think that those two girls have such a head on their shoulders and are so prepared for the adult world because of this situation they've been thrust into, that I have done my job as a dad and created two respectable adults when they enter that part of the world. One is getting ready to, and I got a few years with the other. But as a dad, as a single dad with full custody of two girls, I am proud of what they've turned out or how they've turned out. And that is the greatest accomplishment that I will ever have in my life. So the rest is pretty easy.
Nice. Nice. Yeah, it is a blessing, brother. And, thankful that you and your girls came through this the way you have. I know that there was a lot of pain, but to see them doing okay is what it's all about, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And thank
right
you for
on.
giving me the chance to tell people about it.
You got it, man. You're welcome on here anytime. Love it, very love it. Uh, Geez, Erik, thank you for everything you did. Thanks for telling everybody your story. Um, Everybody go check out at Justice for Holt on Facebook. Look it up, check it out. There's going to be a GoFundMe link. If you have $5 you can throw in there, do what you can. You know what I mean? Every dollar counts. If everybody, chipped in a little bit, then maybe we can do our part to help him fight this ridiculous injustice. You've all watched this stuff on the news for the last 6 years, and now it's actually happening to somebody on my show, and he's fighting back. So you know what? You get a chance to do something about it. So help the guy out. All right, it's going to be there. Link's going to be there. Let's see if we can make a little bit of a difference, everybody. Okay. Erik, thanks for coming on the show, brother. Appreciate you so much.
Thank you. And thank you, all your listeners. I appreciate you all.
You got it. Folks, it's been another episode of the Power Man podcast. And the reason that we bring powerful men like Eric on here to deliver these powerful messages is because, we are behind you, as all of my listeners, in your mission to become better fathers, better husbands, better men tomorrow than you are today, to become better protectors, better providers, better leaders tomorrow than you are today. And the reason that we deliver these messages is because you are worth it and you have value. And at some point, you simply have to believe it. Until next time.